Welcome back, subscribers. Yeah, this will be a decent upload for YouTube. I thought I was like, yeah, this is an open environment, and we can uh upload this. I said this is kind of cool because I just had this conversation, and this is typically what happens with my days. Is I take a phone call from somebody, or something happens just in my day of business that I get people talking, and they all know things. So I'll just share this with you guys. Um, I'm having this car built out in California, and the guy that's building it is he's an older gentleman, super nice guy. We're just trying to like figure out the logistics of like pickup, braking of the engine, driving around, so on and so on, before before we head across the country because it's a 2,700-mile trip in this car, and nobody really knows it's brand new. And it's not like going out and buying it off the showroom floor at a dealer. you know. So it's a hand basket. I know. We get to talking about somehow the Iran thing comes up, and we start talking about trade. I go, well, I said the U.S. is being forced to go in there to destabilize it. Da 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 da. Da. I said, but yeah, they're. When I brought up to him, I said, yeah, it's the Belt Road Initiative. I said it's the reestablishing the old Silk Road, and he goes, oh, you're right. I remember that story. And he says, "Yeah, I'm into like the hidden history and hidden geopolitical game that gets played behind the scenes." I say, "Ah, so are we." I said, "We've got a whole project that we're working on that we cover all this so that once people understand the language, they'll understand the internal gameplay that happens domestically, let's say in the United States, and then how it is you know, uh, portrayed to the population through media, social media and so on, and how they spin it. But it's got nothing to do with it. It's all about trade and commerce. I said it's all about business. I said they're but they don't want to tell you that. So they have to make it more put some more theater into it. And somehow we get to talking about the Vietnam War. So I walked him through the Iran thing and what I knew about the Iran. He's like, "Oh yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, that makes total sense." And then he says, we I said, "Yeah, I said they're basically doing the same thing they did with Vietnam." I said, "Where we don't necessarily have direct interest in it, but it's going to be handed off and handed to someone else. There's a reason why uh they pulled out. They got things going and then they ended up pulling out of that particular territory." I said because they knew in the future that this wasn't going to be allowed as US territory in Southeast Asia because this Belt Road Initiative element was already, they just didn't come up with it 2013. That's how far out these guys play. So the United States couldn't have territorial, uh, you know, jurisdictional rights inside of that environment, which in the future they would be giving up anyway. So, and he's like, "Oh, that's an interesting way of looking at it." And I said, "Yeah." And title, he goes, the reason why the French were in Vietnam in the beginning?" I said, "Well, tell me what you know." And he said, "It's a tungsten." He said they were after the natural resources that were in Southeast Asia because it's rich in tungsten, rubber. There's a number of other ones, but the primary one was tungsten. And that's ultimately they were trying to establish a some sort of mechanism through the government that they basically got a cut of it so that they could bring in their businesses, NGOs, and them make the money, them do the mining, but they're the ones that get first dibs on, international distribution of this commodity, tungsten. And I was like, "Oh yeah, I said that makes sense." I said, "Well, that's the whole reason why we're in I said the Mexico and Narcos thing. I said they're just using that as a mechanism to let the economy and the governmental administration erode from the inside out with the narcos, the drug trade." I said to basically kill the government off and to be able to have the US swoop in there and take over its silver reserve. He said silver, yes. He said, but the copper reserves far exceed silver reserves. It's like, oh yeah. I said, yeah, it's all about commodities and trade, isn't it? I said, yeah, isn't it interesting? I said how these this geopolitical game gets played. I said in this chess match on how they're doing whatever they can to keep their economies rolling with these natural resources that are in these territories. So yeah, so it was a very interesting conversation, and he had a relative that like I think an uncle he said was in the OSS. So this is pre CIA. So it's a special operations unit that was developed during World War II in the United States. Da, 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 da. And he said his his relative, his uncle, went down to Brazil during World War II to get a. He was briefed on Russia from the Nazis. He said, "I said not like he's going down there to go wipe out the Nazis." He said, "No, no, 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 no. They were. He was he was having a high level meetings with Nazis, telling them to get disclosure and debriefed on everything that was Russian because the Germans had all the information on them. So behind the scenes, there's a lot of kind of back and forth trading of information that happens, and some are again are uh, playing against the other opponent that they might be giving them false information or so on and so on. So they want this information so they can use it for strategic either alliances or defense, in the future. And more data is better than no data. So they they're all very open with communicating this information back and forth to one another. And yeah, so he had a whole bunch of stories from this relative that was in the OSS. He was just kind of like rolling through. He's like, "Oh," he goes, "I could just talk for days about this." He said, "Yeah, but it doesn't work like people think it works." I was like, "Yeah, we know." And I said, ultimately, when I told him uh like what's happening behind the scenes, we also started talking about taxation, about the blockchain and crypto. And I was like, yeah, I said, he talked about during, I think he said like post World War II, that there was a section of like near like Shanghai, or there's a territory environment that was a free trade zone that was set up as for free trade. So it said there's no taxation levied in any business that came out of that territory. I said, yeah, I say that's what they're doing right now in the crypto space. And we're finding out that you're able to do this on a personal level. I said it doesn't have to necessarily be on a nation state level, but this is done even on you can do this on an individual level. And I told him, I said, like, if you're doing business inside of that particular jurisdiction that has these tax advantages, then you can take advantage of it because you're allowed, because it's inside of the new crypto digital space. They're basically encouraging it and incentivizing it on the front end. He's like, yeah, that's what they always do. I was like, yeah, exactly. I said, so that's what our interests are. I said, for sure. I said it's exciting times. I said if you can keep your head screwed on straight and not get sucked into what's going on. Because originally the conversation started about, when the election comes up, in 2 years, that he's kind of like an anti-Trump kind of guy. And I was like, yeah, this goes way above Trump. And he wasn't looking at it from this big geopolitical perspective, and I kind of walked him through, and he's like, oh yeah, that makes sense. I said, yeah, so he's not really the best guy, I said, to get behind. I said, because of his delivery isn't so great. I said, but he's just he's just playing the game like all the rest of them played. And yeah, so it was an interesting conversation. But again, I'm telling you, the people that listen to this, I know that or you've heard stories or something, and you're just missing like a couple small pieces to the puzzle, which makes everything else make sense. Which is ultimately what our interests are, is trying to just be like, one step ahead, or at least be on the same level of knowledge that the heavy hitters, the big time money players and strategic players of the planet have been using this kind of methodology always. Like, and it's like, what are the signs, what are the symbols, what are the elements that are going to be opening your mind to this other environment of how they play the game, so that you can keep yourself in a better personal and family strategic position, so that you don't get stuck and you don't put yourself in a bad situation and get caught up in the I don't know, the energy of the moment and get sucked into it. You have to look at it from like a more of a stoic, uh, you know, uh, observational perspective. So, anyway, there'll be more to come. Like I said, I have these conversations with people, just general people that run across my space, and it's like I magnetically kind of draw this stuff out of them. Like they'll say something because it's kind of a magnetic attraction to it because they have concerns about something, and then I will say something that it kind of like triggers them in a way that allows them to know that it's okay for them to talk, and then they get talking, and then we trade information back and forth, and then during this conversation, this guy, he it was like a clear perspective on what currently is happening. Like he's living in the current times of the same crap that has been happening always. So it doesn't it's like it soothes you to the point where you know like everything is going to be okay. And but it's still it takes a little bit of the heat off the moment for sure. Like this isn't anything new. So anyway, more to come. Cheers.